There's a reason it's still here 3,000 years later. There's a reason that some of the greatest people you've ever met were a part of it. And that the impact that people that make up less than 1% of the world, the impact we have on the world is so spectacularly huge. It's so out of proportion for who we are.
So it's a great honor and a pleasure to welcome to our mentorship podcast, Rob Kurtz, who is not a mentor. Mentor doesn't begin to describe. He's like a super mentor, mega mentor. Is that a good way to say it?
I was happy with mentor.
Well, I think you have
that's pretty super.
Already
right
had three mentorships, correct?
Yeah.
Your wife also.
My wife has two, but probably will take another one soon.
You guys are really rocking it. So let's jump right in. I think people would be kind of curious about a little bit about your background. Like, where'd you grow up? What's your professional journey? A little bit about your personal journey. Let's try to keep it brief but interesting.
Yeah, because I don't know how interesting. The most interesting part, I guess, for our audience is that I grew up totally secular, suburban Long Island, not the parts that most people know out east near the Hamptons. One of, I think, 3 or 4 Jewish kids in my high school, and the Hebrew school, that great. I don't know how best way to describe Hebrew school. Root cause of anti-Semitism in the world? I'm not sure.
Jew jail? Okay.
But while there was a particular rabbi who took a great interest. He drove quite a distance and he cared about us a lot. And I loved him. And he sparked a real interest in me, in my heritage. And I had a grandmother who was just all things good in the world. And we'd visit her on Friday nights, and she cooked everything for everybody's their favorite thing, and everybody was a darling, and she loved everyone, and I loved her. And so there's a real contrast between, and my parents were very traditional in their very supportive nature of being Jewish, but we were like a completely secular family. But there's a real contrast for me from like the people I was growing up with and what my family was about and what our background was. So it always kind of created a desire in me to know more. But it wasn't until I got to college, and actually not until graduate school, until I realized I knew absolutely nothing, and then started looking into it a little bit more.
Where did you go to college and where did you go to graduate school?
I went to NYU for film school as an undergrad, and I wanted to stay in New York City, and I went to law school at Cardozo School of Law. And while there was a rabbi who taught, and I just thought it'd be a real interesting course on Jewish law. And I took that course, and that had an incredible impact on me. It's a brief story, but it's a worthwhile one because it really had tremendous impact on me. There's in law, for all the lawyers who may hear this one day, there's something called the Good Samaritan rule, which is a very nice rule. It's common in American law. It's common in English common law, which is the idea of a good Samaritan is a good person. It's a Christian concept, that this the Good Samaritan. And the idea behind the Good Samaritan rule is if you're driving down the road and you see somebody's hurt on the side of the road, a Good Samaritan, it removes any liability for the nice person who stops to help them. You don't have to stop, but if you stop, people always worry, gee, if I don't know what I'm doing, well, I make things worse. Can I get sued or am I liable? The Good Samaritan rule comes along to say, no, you can't take out a hammer, hit the guy in the head. You can't be grossly negligent, but you can try to help. And if you, in your attempts to help, you made things worse, you're not liable because you were trying to help. That's the Good Samaritan rule in a nutshell. And then I'd learned that, made sense to me. It's a good thing. It's encouraged people to be good. And then I was taking this class in Jewish law. There was like one of those moments that just changes everything for you. In the class in Jewish law, you discover there's no such thing as a Good Samaritan. There's no such thing as a Good Samaritan, because what do you mean you could keep driving down the road? Your brother's on the side of the road. You're liable if you don't stop. You must stop. What are you talking about? You're seeing your brother on the side of the road. So the non-Jewish idea is, well, listen, you can keep going, but we'd like you to stop. The Jewish idea is, you can't keep going. You have an obligation to stop and help him. And I remember sitting in that class, I remember raising my hand and asking the rabbi to repeat that. And he then realized, because almost everybody in the class was an observant person who knew basic Jewish law, but I didn't. So everybody was like looking at me like, what's your problem? Did you get this? And I'm like, what do you mean you're obligated to stop? And it was just this light bulb went off of a system of obligations rather than a system of Bill of Rights. Because growing up to that point, I was a happy American. The greatest document in the world to me was the Bill of Rights. And these are all our rights. There are no rights in Torah, and I went to, it made me want to, like I started reading everything I could and learning everything I could about the idea of a system that you are expected to be much greater than your base person. You have obligations in the world, and you're born into obligation. You're not born into rights. And that was just a really huge defining moment for me. I mean,
That's fantastic.
In a really
Now,
weird
did you
way.
become a lawyer, or did you do the film thing?
I finished law school and took the bar and passed the bar to make my parents happy, but I never practiced law for a day in my life.
Maybe you went to law school because you needed that realization from that one professor in Cardozo, no?
It's either that or the fact that it was great for meeting girls, and it definitely helped my wife get over the really bad plaid sweater I was wearing on our first date. So maybe that helped, but otherwise I have no idea why I went to law school.
And did you stay in New York, or you went to California to chase your dreams? What happens?
The day after the bar exam, I went to California, and I wanted to chase that dream. That's what I always wanted to be a writer.
And did that dream materialize?
Yeah. I wrote for sitcoms for more than 10 years. I wrote feature that's posted behind me. And I'm a creative lead at a studio right now. We make a lot of content mostly for kids and families, and in the streaming world. Yeah, that was the bulk of my creative career anyway.
That's amazing. That's wonderful. And I'm assuming, just tell the people who are tuning in over here that you're married. I know you're married. I know you have kids. I know you have grandkids. I met your wife. She's a rock star. And I haven't met your kids, but if they follow their parents, I think they're probably pretty good, no?
They're pretty awesome. Yeah. Actually, my son CJ learns with, I think they're Mayor guys. When he was here, he's in Yeshiva in Israel, but when he was here, he was learning with guys on Monday nights on the Upper West Side. I think from Rutgers, and he did the program in Montana where he was one of the group leaders in Montana, and he's got a whole bunch of guys that come out into Israel to visit with him. So he loves being involved with Kiev, and my daughters, I think, have guests all the time. Yeah, so we're there. It's a family thing. They grew up with lots of people around the Shabbos table who didn't themselves not grow up around Shabbos tables, and we consider it part of our role in this world.
Okay, so most people that I talk to and I ask them, I suggest them if they'd like to become a mentor, it happens to be Jewish people are very special. And I think it's fair to say that over 90% say yes. Very few people say yes. They're mentee. There's a few out there, but I think we have like one in Toronto and maybe like one in England, and that's it. You're a busy guy, I know that. And what is it about mentorship that you find compelling, that you want to do this, that you're involved, you're devoted? And to call a spade, I don't know how many people know this, but when we tried to kick off mentorship in a substantial way, you in the Long Island area, getting mentors in the Long Island area, you and your wife who are our ambassadors, you kind of took it up from the ground level. So what pulls you? What draws you about it?
On a serious side, people mentored me.
Okay.
On the less than serious side, what you were saying before about how Jews are different, yeah, we just like to tell everybody what to do. But on a more serious side, yeah, people were mentors to me, and people helped me enormously in the world, and it's a really great thing when in a simple conversation or a Shabbos invitation or just sharing an idea from the Parsha can really impact people. Being somebody who was once impacted, it was over 30 years ago, but somebody who was once impacted by those conversations, once you know the power of it, how do you not want to share it? And one of the guys that I mentored is now in Israel learning, and I can't even keep up with him anymore. He's just on fire, But so I don't know. There are certain people in the world that whenever they discover something good, and I think Jews are totally like this, whether it's a restaurant or a book you got to read,
shampoo,
you just got to tell everybody about it, and they all have to do it. And whatever it is you have that's really good, you got to tell everybody about. It's really good. So if you feel that way about a book or a restaurant or a place you went on vacation, how do you not feel that way about the whole point of our lives and Torah? Like
You take me back to, like you said, because you had amazing mentors, you wanted to, give that back, if you want to call that. Can you share with me one or two of the people in your past who were your mentors, who were life changing or just were phenomenal?
I still have them, many of them, but throughout there were different ones. There was that rabbi in Hebrew school I mentioned before. He's no longer with us. Um, he had been drafted into the NFL and chose to become a rabbi instead. So his path really was unbelievable to me. He's a strong, powerful guy, and well, you didn't want to make him upset in Hebrew school, that's for sure, because he got angry.
He could punt you.
Yes, but he was, when he got angry, it was not good. But I will say this: but when he loved you, man, he loved you in a way that you know secular teachers can't. I mean, probably against the law, but he was the first time I ever had Shabbos was when he would invite us to his home and meet his family and his kids in Oceanside. And his name is Rabbi Jeff Wartenberg. He was an unbelievable person in my life. Rabbi Wartenberg was the kind of person, the assimilation rate in Suffolk County where I grew up was like 70, 80%. It was crazy. And he taught in our Hebrew school, I don't know, for 20 years, a little tiny Hebrew school, and only one person ever married him. And I don't think he was ever at peace with it. I think it killed him.
Wow.
So, because after you meet people like that, you touched your 3,000-year-old tradition. You're not, just some girl named Mary isn't going to do it after Rabbi Ward, that's for sure. So he was one. There was a person professionally, not as a writer, but just as a person. His name was Howard Sterling, was a mentor to me in LA when I first got out there. And Howard played a big role in my life, and in the fact that he was one of the chairmen of APAC, and I was very involved with APAC. And they had their meetings at the Beverly Hills Hotel. And there's so much to admire about Howard, but the thing that sticks with me always is that Beverly Hotel has this big driveway, and in LA, cars are beyond status symbols. They're mini gods. What you drive is who you are. And there was Howard, who was easily one of the most successful people in the whole city. Forget the hotel, and he had a Ford Taurus. And when that Ford Taurus pulled up, and everybody else would like look at who's this schlep, and he would get in and go, Rob, want to ride? And I'd be like, yeah, really I do. And it was just, he was a tremendous. It is a tremendous person, and he taught me a lot. And he actually told me one time when I was home for the holidays, when I was in LA and my home was in New York, he said, I want you to go to this place, Asia Tour, and you're going to meet some people there. They're going to, they'll invite you. He made a phone call or two for lunch, and it changed everything because I didn't even know. I was like, sure, I'll go over there. And I forgot what the other was. It's over 30 years ago. They all became very close dear friends, and ultimately I moved from the beach into town to be part of the whole community there. My friends were there, and the rabbis there were just, I love them all. And so he played a huge role in my life. And currently there's a rabbi that I met when I was in Israel 20 some odd years ago, 25, 20 more. Wow. Years ago. His name is Rabbi Natan Lopez Cardozo. Rabbi Cardozo.
Oh, sure.
Played a huge role in my life. Huge, still does. And he gave me my real hashkafa towards my philosophy towards Judaism, and that was it was a call to dignity. It was his whole thing was the king is showing you how to live in his palace, and that was what he taught. It was his Torah. That's what he said. Everything you're learning here is he's teaching. The king is teaching you how to live like a prince, how to be royal in his palace. Question is this what you yearn for? Is this what you want? Do you want to be on that level? Do you want to be royalty, or do you want to be something less than that? And he would challenge
regular.
Yeah, and he would challenge you to want to be royalty. And that's what he and that philosophy has stayed with me always.
Robert, if you had, because there's a lot of people that are going to be watching this, God willing, and
oh really?
If you could,
well, then yes, I apologize for everything I'm saying.
You're famous, and you had an opportunity to have a 1-hour conversation with a young professional that's starting off. They've got bright eyes and they're looking ahead towards hopefully a glamorous career and a great relationship with somebody and a wonderful family and kids. And you have an opportunity to talk to them for 1 hour, and probably 90% of what you're going to say, they're going to forget. Uh, what's the one enduring understanding that you would love to impart to them? Something that they can come back to, that they could think about from time to time as the many different, stops on their journey unfold.
Wow, there's so many different possible answers to that question.
I love that you're thinking. Guys, if you're watching this, he thinks. That's what you should take from him.
I what would be there's so many different approaches to what I would want to share with them. I would want to share with them the idea. Um, okay, I'll tell you what I would share with them. So on Yom
Fine.
Kippur, we have the Al Chetz. We're saying, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Most of us are raised to believe, like, you feel bad. You're feeling bad for the things you did wrong. But I had a rabbi, his name was Dov Heller, who always said to me, God doesn't ask you to be anything you can't be. So see those as, I know I'm so much better than this. I know I can be better. I know this. I know I'm levels higher. And I fell down, but please let me get back up. I fell down, let me get back up. And that's how I go through Yom Kippur every year now. And that's the fastest day of the year for me. It's not about fasting, it's not about anything. It's because I'm remembering what I got wrong and what I got right that day. It's the whole day to do my recap on the year. So why would I say that to somebody now in hoping that they would one thing would stick in their mind? Is that Judaism is big into you fell down, get back up. And in order to get back up and become something unbelievably better than you ever thought you could be, dive into this. Dive into this, because it's a prescription. There's a reason it's still here 3,000 years later. There's a reason that some of the greatest people you've ever met were a part of it. And that the impact that people that make up less than 1% of the world, the impact we have on the world is so spectacularly huge. It's so out of proportion for who we are and our size and everything. Look at Israel. I mean, look what the accomplishments. And just in America, 1% of the population, 30% of the government, own everything, maybe too much. That's a different conversation. But there's something powerful here. And that power belongs to you. And you should grab into that power. There's only one way to grab into that power. You have to grab the Rabbi Landows of the world and say, teach this to me. What is this? Because I didn't grow up knowing this. So teach it to me. I want to know who these people were. Because Yaakov and Avram and Sarah and Rivka, those aren't names from the past. That's your blood. That's your blood. And if you understand that there's royal blood flowing through your veins, but you have no idea, since somebody's got to come along and say to you, you don't even know you're a prince. Forgive the son of my eye here. You don't even know you're a prince or a queen or a princess. But there are people walking around named Rabbi Landau, Rabbi Lynn, and all the other wonderful rabbis who are basically saying my whole life is about letting you know, by the way, you're a prince. And that girl next to you, and she's talking about her job working on Madison Avenue. You're talking about your job. You're both prince. You're both royalty. You come from an unbelievable chain, but you don't know what that is because after 3,000 years of being kicked around all around the world, you're not really sure who you are. So go find out. Do that for yourself. Just go find out who you are, who this is, because all you know right now is your parents told you you're Jewish. What is that? What does it mean? And why are we so unbelievably great? And why do really awful people hate us? That's a good thing to know. When you see anti-Semitism in the world, it's never great people who are anti-Semites. They're always horrible, horrible people. Why do horrible people hate us? Maybe they just hate greatness. So what is this greatness that we're a part of? What is this? And when you find out what it is, oh man, then you tapped into
amazing.
You tapped into something really deep, really unbelievable.
I'll tell you something amazing. I was once in the metro in Washington, D.C., and you go down like 500 steps to get to the metro in some of the stations there. And there's this African guy standing, not African American, African from like, I don't know, heart of African continent. And the guy looks at me and he sees I'm wearing a kippah. He's probably a new immigrant. And he says to me, and I'm not going to imitate him, although I really could because I'm really good with imitations. He says to me, "Are you a Hebrew?" And I'm like, "Hebrew? I've never been called that before." I said, I guess I'm a Jew. He says, one second. Are you a descendant of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? I said, yeah. He says, King Solomon? Yes, I happen to have like a genealogy that takes me back to King David. He goes, oh my gosh, then you are royalty. Just to me. And I remember, like, thank God the metro came and I didn't have to continue the conversation because it was starting to get a little odd. But I remember, like, it's swirling in my mind. I am royalty. Why is he the only one that sees it? Why don't we look in the mirror and see it ourselves? So your point is amazing and it's awesome. I want to ask you just like one final
Please,
question over
please,
here.
please, please, sure.
So for somebody who's on the fence, be a mentor, they're pulled in so many different directions and they're giving back to the community. They have a family and they have a job and they try to work on self-development and they study Torah and they're pulled in a lot of different directions. We're asking them to be mentors, let's say for half an hour or a week. Give me your elevator pitch. What would you tell them? Why should they do it? I'm doing great. Why do I need this?
Well, you're asking the wrong guy because I think we should be giving more than half an hour a week. But I um, because I can tell from me, I said, because you don't really know what real simcha is. It's one thing with your own children, but it's another to do something I've been blessed to do many times in my life. And that's to go to the chuppah of somebody where you're sitting there at the chuppah and
Right?
remembering the first time you met them
Mm.
and who they are now. And that you played the smallest, the biggest, whatever, that you played any role in that. And you look at them and you can't even believe this person going up there, and you just open the door for them to say, here's who you could be, here's what you could be, here's your heritage, here's your here's everything. Maybe they came to you for Shabbos, maybe they just talked business with you, but you were the first religious person they ever met, and it changed their world. And I don't know how many mentors get to go to their mentees. I don't know how the relationships say. I certainly feel close to mine that I hope to be at their weddings one day. But it's an amazing experience. It's an amazing experience, and I've had the opportunity, and you try never to let it just be something else. To know that you played a role in another human being, and then when you meet, then they get married, and you bump into them a few years later, and you see their kids in the street, and you walk away, and it's a mistake not to sit there and say, oh my God, I remember. We're supposed to not remember. We're supposed to say, okay, that was then, this is now. Look at an amazing person they are. But it's okay for that moment to sit there and go, I remember
Totally.
when I first met them. And look what they've become. And I played a little piece of that. Wow. That's
It's so
unbelievable.
funny that you're saying this because just last night there was a young lady who lived across the street from me when I was a rabbi in East Brunswick. I think I met her when she was like 13 or 14. And they're living out of town. They're not living in the tri-state area, and they happen to have been in town, for the winter break. And they came by to our house. Her and her husband. She's got like 5 kids. They're amazing. They're wonderful. And like me and my wife think to each other, we remember when this 14-year-old girl was not, we no one would have ever dreamed that her husband would be a teacher in the local Jewish day school, that they would have this incredibly amazing home steeped in tradition and warmth and kindness, et cetera, et cetera. And no, I don't think we were the ones that had, that changed anything. But like you said, maybe we just opened the door. We had them over for Shabbos, and this young lady became very much part of our family. And like, we're not taking any credit, but I think you're allowed to sometimes look in the mirror and be like, wow, it's so amazing to see what this person became. And it does make you feel good inside, for sure.
It
Not
makes
even
you
a
feel good
question.
when you get to say, Hashem, thank you for letting me be a part of that. Because I got
Totally,
to play a
totally,
role. I
totally.
got to play a role
Mm,
in that. And you go to these things. That's all you get to do. It's because you get to play. You get to be the guy who said, "Come on in," and those are hopefully friendships that will last a long time. And it's different than relationships by far. It's very different than relationship with your kids and with your coworkers because it's somebody who's saying, "Hey, can you help me?" and help me
totally.
out here. And you get to say, "Yeah, let me see how I can help you out." And a real
Amazing.
relationship. I mean, the other mentors I met over last year, and they told me that they became, some came closer than others, but they all had a real kesher.
It's
It's
a
a beautiful,
beautiful thing. Well,
great. It's a
Rob,
great.
I'm so grateful that you've been part of this already for the last about 2 years right now. And your wife was also amazing. And I think one day, I hope my prayer, my dream one day is that like when this thing is big and like every amazing Jewish successful man and woman says, you know, I want to connect with another Jewish person. It'll be like that chuppah that you're sitting in the audience and you'll be like, listen, I opened the door a little bit, then you'll have that nachas, you'll have that pride, you'll have that fulfillment. So God willing, that's the dream here.
Yeah, the dream is to see that whole world that happened in there and say, I got to be a part of this. That's all. You just get to be
Thank
a
you.
part of it. It's pretty amazing.
Well, we're so grateful. Thank you so much. Hashem should bless you and your entire
Amen.
family. And together we should savor the success that I think we're going to.
Amen. Amen. And
Amen.
like I said, onward and upward.
Thank you so much, Rob. I really appreciate your time. All the best to you.
Bye.